I'm Ted Padromo, and I'm so excited about another publisher in the house. Another author, I mean, not publisher. This is Nancy McSherry Jensen, who's my cousin-in-law,
That's right.
and this is Sarah Duenwald, and they just published a new book.
We
Are you gonna
did.
pitch your book for us? Hold up your book. Come on.
Here it is. Back to business.
That's a
How
business.
does it feel to have a real book published by a real publisher?
It's weird. I mean, Sarah, did you ever have that as part of your life plan to publish a book?
No, I had thought about, I wish I was a writer in the cabin in the woods somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Type of dream. But never, ever did I ever think it would be a business book. And
Right.
yeah, it's surreal. Very exciting.
It is.
It
Now,
is.
Ted, you've written 2, 3 books.
Or
4. Yes.
it's
And they're all-
life-changing. It really is. Once you get a book out there, it's like the best business card. It opens so many doors. You guys,
does.
I'm so excited for you because you guys have been up to the Swing Shift for how many years?
We're coming on 4 years. We incorporated in 2017, and we started the business as an in-person program, right? Working with women who had taken breaks and wanted to come back. And from there, it built by increments. People would say, well, you have this multi-week program. Do you do one, individual workshops? And we said, yes. And then they said, do you do one-on-one consulting? And we said, yes. And they said, do you have referrals to coaches? And we kept saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a couple of years ago, 2 different publishers had contacted us and said, have you thought about writing a book? And I thought no, but we said yes. And the short version is we ended up totally unrelated getting an opportunity with HarperCollins Leadership through the Microsoft Alumni Network. And both organizations have been fantastic to work with. And so here we are.
Kind of sounds like my story. I never dreamed of writing a book and business book, and it just happened.
It does.
Yeah. And looking back, it was the logical next step, really.
Right.
We had a big in-depth multi-week boot camp style program that was in person, and we were looking to scale that program. And that would have been in different geographical locations, which was hard, took up a lot of resources. But what we were able to do with the resources at HarperCollins Publishing is put that into a book form. So now women all over, anywhere, can get access to it. They can do it on their own time. And it's kind of a, self-guided, so they can refer back to it as needed.
Right. And the other benefit we have, we're talking up HarperCollins and the Microsoft Alumni Network for sure. They also included an e-learning course, which, I think right now especially is so important because, as Sarah said, people who are working at home, you need to be able to do this when your kids are doing online school or after they've gone to bed or before they get up. You have to do it on your own schedule. And having somebody walk you through it in a video on demand format is really, really effective. And so we're very fortunate. So we have the e-course and we have the book.
Your timing couldn't be better. I mean,
well, and it's one of those things. I mean, Sarah, I don't know how you feel about this. Nobody wishes the pandemic had happened for sure. We were finishing the book as the pandemic was kicking off. And I remember we were at the Riveter, which is where our headquarters were. And I think we both still miss it. We were finishing it up, and you and I both said, well, what are we going to do with the business? And Sarah was the one who said, no, we've got to pivot hard to online, and we've got to make that turn. And I mean, we did it fast, right? And that was mostly Sarah who just said, we have to do this. This is how we're going to program it. Here's what we're going to do. And then, we talked about the book and we said, well, should we back burner that? And we said, nope, let's double down and finish it. So last March was really intense because we had to finish the book. We were on a deadline, but the publisher was great. They're like, oh, don't worry. We can push it back a few days. And I thought in the back of my head, I don't want to push this back a few days. I want this thing ready, because you could just tell at the time that this pandemic was not going to be 2 weeks, which is what everybody was saying up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what the pandemic did was really just shone a brighter light on what was already a huge problem. It was 45% of American women take a career break, and not a lot of people realize that, and so we were already doing a lot of advocating at a corporate level to help understand, how do we get these women back to work? And then this pandemic, of course, just again has made it, 10 times worse for women.
Yeah.
And they're leaving the workforce in droves. So
right. I think it was in December, there were 156,000 job losses, all by women in the United States. And back in September, over 1 million women lost jobs in that month. I mean, the pandemic has hit women, female employment the hardest.
Yeah. It's much worse than the dot-com crash when the tech workers got wiped out.
And we need to look at the numbers and compare that, but it definitely feels the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can apply all this to men too. My career's been just kicked to the curb so many times.
Yeah. Well, you're very resilient though, Ted. And I think you look at because you've got your whole search engine optimization business. We should come talk to you. But, I think you do what we advise people to do, which is to say, what are the things that I'm good at, and what are the things that I like, and what are the things that I would like to stay away from? And that's part of what we talk about in the book. Many people, when they're going, male, female, whatever the reasons are that they take a break, when it's time to go back, the default option is to just go back to what you did before.
Mm-hmm.
But many times, that's not the best option. The factors in your life have changed, sometimes radically. And so you need to really think hard about, well, what's going to fit the current features, or what's the current situation in my life.
I was listening to on your Amazon page, they have the excerpt, the audio version. I was listening to that. It was like, oh my God, yeah, I was out of the workforce for a couple of years, and then I'm trying to apply for jobs, and I didn't know what job titles were anymore. They're so different.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that changes, and there's a lot of unwritten rules, right, that are set by recruiters and corporate hiring managers. And essentially what Back to Business does is we always say it just teaches you how to play the modern job search game, because that's what it is. It's a game. And if you can navigate it and not waste time on all that other chaos and noise out there, it can really streamline the process for you a lot more.
Right.
I think it's important to connect with people like you too, that know the ins and outs of the game.
That certainly helps. And you touch on something, Ted, that I think is really important, is this notion of connections and networking. Most of the time we find when people start looking for a job, they just default to their resume. Oh, I need a new resume, because it's very tangible, right? And yeah, sure, you need a resume. But the reality is it's the relationships that you have, not just in your work life, but in your social life. Those are the things that are going to help you move forward.
Right.
We like to call it your job search toolkit. And the resume is just one of those tools. But in that toolkit, you also need a polished LinkedIn profile. Ted, as you know, the expert, you need a good pitch. You need to understand, how do you talk about yourself? How do you talk about your skills? And how do you do it in a compelling way, depending on what you're looking for? And then you also need to make sure that your network is updated and you're activating those network connections. And then your personal brand plays a big part as well. What is your brand? Who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? Where are they at? What do you want to say? All of that is what you need to start thinking about. But the great news is that most job seekers don't. So if you put a little bit of effort into it, you can really stand out, especially on a chaotic and crowded job market like today.
Right. Yeah. Why are you different than the 10 million other software developers?
Yeah.
That is exactly right.
And some people have a really hard time sitting down and assessing, okay, what makes me different? Because things that come really easy to them, they think come easy to others as well, which is just not the case. And so we advise a really great starting point if you're having a hard time really understanding what you're good at and what makes you different is to reach out to friends and family, past colleagues, clients, ask them the questions. What were my strengths? What did you come to me for when you needed something? What do you admire about the work that I do? You know, all of those answers are kind of the baseline for your pitch and your brand, really.
Yeah. It's hard to do it for yourself because
It is. Yeah.
it's really
Yes,
hard.
because you either don't dig deep enough, or you gloss over things that are either really important, or maybe you over focus on them, and people are like, "Yeah, that's not a big deal." You know, I mean, I will say for myself, don't like to talk about my feelings. Probably not the most touchy-feely person in the world, and I see this as a huge detriment. And people are like, "No, look, you are a strategic thinker. You have a great network. You're really good at articulating a vision." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's important."
You get shit done.
I do get things done. Yeah.
So Sarah,
In a
how
very
long were
direct
you-
way, which is good.
Yes.
How much
Ted
time
used
did you
to
take
that.
off, Sarah, before you came back into the workforce?
So I took off about a year. After my second child, which is really when most women get pushed out of the workforce due to childcare costs and accessibility. It's that second kid. And happened to me, and I just wasn't happy where I was, and I wanted to do something different. And so I took some time off and still didn't know. I was really confused and lost and just wasn't sure where I wanted to take my career, but I did keep my network up to date, and I made sure that I was continuously reaching out to past colleagues, and nothing major, right? Just reaching out on LinkedIn and making sure I was connected with people. And so then I was like, in order to move forward, I don't know what I want to do next, but I know what I don't want to do. And so I just started having that conversation with my network as well, and said, I know I don't want to go in this direction. Here's some of my strengths. Here's what I enjoy doing. What are your thoughts around that? And I got connected to Nancy through a friend, and she was starting to put some of the framework together of launching a program of helping women get back to work. And I, kind of saw it was like a light bulb of, wow, if we both have had some issues and around uncertainty of what's next, a lot of women probably have this. And then you dive into the data, sure enough, they do. And so, when we first launched, we just wanted to run a program a couple times a year, a 6-week boot camp, and it just kept becoming bigger and bigger. And so we got some corporate partners to come on board, and here we are almost 4 years later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nancy, how many years were you kind of in?
I had a
I lose
5-year
track
break.
of it because it's been...
I was working, right? I worked a full-time job for a long time, and then I was working, generally speaking, I was working full-time, but doing a couple of contract jobs. I was teaching at UW and doing consulting work for a series of organizations up here. Again, it was child number 2. Our son Joe was a terrible sleeper, and I could not cope. I was not thinking straight. And I said, well, I'm going to take a year off, get him through the bad sleep phase. And then unexpectedly, my dad died. And so what started as a 1-year break turned to 5, right? And this is very, very, very common. People, and this is what sends guys home, is that their parents are older and that they need to go home and take care of them. And that when it's time to come back, you need a way to talk about it, right? In a way that a hiring manager is going to hear. Because the reality, for me, yes, I ended up taking a 5-year break, to take care of my kids and my parents. But when I went out to talk to people for jobs, all they want to know is, what can you do for me? Yeah. And they also want you to account for your time. So that's part of what we talk about in Back to Business, is you've got to have a nice, crisp, compelling pitch where you say, I took a 5-year break to care for my young children and my older parents. Now I'm looking to go back using my market research and product launch skills, something like that. And that's it.
Yeah. It's also important, though, especially I know for women, to recognize that, let's say they were off for, 5 to 10 years or longer, during that time, majority of them are volunteering their time in some way, whether it's at their school, their kids' school, a local nonprofit, a friend's business, whatever it may be, they're lending their time, and to really take stock of what they've done and how do they talk about that work, because that is relevant work and that's recent work experience that can translate to paid work. So not just saying, I took a break, stay home with my kids, and now I'm ready to get back and next and so on. But also, if there's relevant work that you've done that can transfer to a role that you're interviewing for, you want to be able to talk about that in a compelling way. And it's important. It's important work too.
Yeah, stay active.
Yeah. Well, and it's also what transferable skills are out there. There's somebody that came through one of our programs a couple of years ago. She's working in the educational unit at a very large company up here. And the reason she got the job was because she was a major fundraiser for a private school that one of her kids attended. And she was raising like between $1 and $2 million a year. And she went in to talk to the company, and they said, and she was talking about something completely different. And they said, we want you to talk to us about how you raised that money. And that was the thing that got her the job.
Yeah.
So what she did is she was able to talk about it in terms of, she quantified it. And she said, I raised this much money. I worked with this many donors. I worked with this many foundations. And that was directly transferable to the business development job that she's doing now.
It's important to not discount that work.
Right.
That is the key. Yeah.
I spent years on the school foundation. We had to raise $1 million a year to have art and music in the schools.
That's right.
It's like,
that's right. Well, that's, and those are directly transferable skills, because again, what hiring managers and recruiters, what they want to know is, do you have the skills and can you do the job?
Right.
That's it. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so, here we are.
Next, when we get back to back in person, you'll have in-person classes again, maybe?
Well, we don't know. At this stage in the game, we are really, we're continuing to work with our online programs, but there's a lot of people who are saying, we actually prefer the digital and the online format. We are working on a couple of corporate initiatives. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, Ted, earlier we mentioned that we do some advocating on the corporate side, and we've really kind of realized that there's a missing link with companies right now, and it's about embracing the career break. And so what we are working on, and we've had a lot of interest around it, is helping companies embrace that career break with their employees. So studies show that the future workforce, the younger millennial generation, is going to be working for a lot longer in their career. And 85% of them foresee significant breaks during that time. And so instead of that traditional corporate career ladder, if you will, it's now companies need to start riding those waves of when when employees leave the workforce and then come back in. How do they keep a hold of them while they're on their break? Right. We have programs that we're working to set up that essentially keep them engaged on a quarterly basis. And it's really just about expanding what you're already doing internally and reaching those people that have taken a step back and saying, hey, we're loyal to you. You're loyal to us. You do what you need to do because life dictates these breaks and we understand. And we're going to be here when you're ready to get back to work.
So keep your skills up while you're
off. And we'll help you do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
You do so much virtually now. It's awesome, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yep. It's hard, right? Yeah. To always be doing virtual learning and calls and everything, but the opportunities are endless right now.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. So show your books again. Let's see the books.
Awesome. Here we are. Oops, I'm going in the wrong direction.
So what's your website to buy the book?
Backtobusinessbook.com. Yep. And our company, the Swing Shifts website is theswingshift.co. And you can follow us on most social channels at the Swing Shift Co. as well. So there's two different websites. There's a book one through our publisher, and then we have our company website as well that has free resources. We interview a lot of experts around the job search topics, and those are all free. We do those weekly, and some great resources on the website as well.
Right.
Cool. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And, if you aren't looking for a new role, but you know somebody that is, let them know, because everybody's got somebody in their life right now. And I know you're all thinking about your sister, your aunt, your daughter, maybe, they're on a break and they're looking to go back. So please let them know.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
See you online.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks.